Love under the scope.
Welcome back to Love Under the Scope. This is a show where we are going to explore all of the ups and downs of being in a long-term relationship. I intend to look into and to discuss the things that we might not want to talk about when we're in a relationship and we're seeing all of these messages on social media, movies, maybe amongst our friends that are telling us that our relationship should be perfect and wonderful and splendid all of the time. In reality, that's not usually the case. And that's okay. Totally okay. Totally normal that we are not always happy with everything being perfect, communication on point, sex life on point, everything just perfect. I intend with this show to give you not only a piece of my own story, but to just explore and go through some things that you might experience in your relationship. I know that I have a lot of the things that I talk about. That's why I talk about them, because I have experienced them and I find these situations interesting. I love to get into the dynamics of arguments and why do we feel tension and how can we alleviate that tension. And so that's what we explore on this show. I am your host, Kelby Lauren. I am a Vita certified love, sex, and relationship coach. I went through a year-long training that was so awesome and helped me to understand my relationship better, myself better, and from there, I have just been like a sponge for a lot of this information, and I want to talk about it here, share what I've learned with you all. I also draw experience from the relationship that I'm in currently. I am in a about 7 year long relationship right now that has changed my life and really shown me how important relationships are to me. I realized that in this current relationship, with all of the work that we have done together, all of the good times that we've had together and the scary times, the times where I was really unsure about my relationship, if it was right for me, if I was not made for love, if I wasn't made to experience the joy that you can have, the connection that you can have in a relationship. Speaking of connection, that is our topic for today. We're going to explore connection. What is connection? We all want connection, right? For the most part. And yet, what even is connection? What does it look like? What does disconnection look like? Where does it come from? And how can we address disconnection? I'll also talk about how we can create connection, not only in our daily lives, in little moments that help us maintain connection long term, but I'll also share with you some practices that you can do to deepen your connection, practices and exercises that are specifically designed to bring you to a deeper layer with your partner. Very cool stuff. I want to start out by defining what connection is. It might sound silly to define a word that really you can't describe a lot of the time. It's something that you feel. It's not a experience that you might be able to put words to, but I do believe in the importance of defining words so that at least we have some reference point to understand if connection is something we have experienced. Have I felt anything remotely close to this definition of connection? I came to this episode today with my own definition, and you might have yours. Everybody experiences being in connection differently. So Kelby's definition of connection is a feeling of total or partial union with another human being. Now, what do I mean by that? We are not going to be fully 100% connected with our partner on a day-to-day basis for the most part. I say total or partial for that reason. There are practices we can do and little moments in life where we do experience that total union with our partner. I just don't know if that's something that we experience on the day to day when we're living our lives, we're going to work, we're taking care of the kids, we're doing all of these chores. We might have parts of us that are connected and other parts that are naturally disconnected. Connection can happen either in a single brief moment, or it could be a feeling that we're having over a period of time, like a few days, a few months. I felt particularly connected with my partner for these past 2 months. And then, the past few days, I've actually felt quite disconnected. You could describe connection in that way. Or something like when we look into each other's eyes at dinner across from each other at the table, I feel really connected to you then. Connection is something that can help us to feel secure in the relationship. There is a grounding element to being connected. There's a sense of understanding, accepting, and loving each other for who we really are. I've heard some couples mention this idea of feeling like a team. And I think that feeling of being on a team, which I have felt in my own relationship, comes from connection. Connection is also multifaceted. I see connection happening in these different buckets. So we've got your physical and your sexual connection. How are you touching each other? How are you making physical contact with each other? Are you holding hands? Are you touching each other in passing? And I'm not talking about the kind of touch that feels unsafe, like if your partner doesn't know that it bothers you when he comes up behind you and grabs your ass. Does that really qualify as a connected type of touch? I don't know. So the type of touch that I'm talking about is mutually desired and feels good for both parties. And that goes for sex as well. Are you having sex in a way that is connected? Meaning, are you having sex in a way that is good for both parties? Are both parties enjoying what's happening? Part of physical and sexual connection is eye contact. So, how often are you looking into each other's eyes? I know that might sound silly, but think about it. Over the past 24 hours, how many times have you made real eye contact with your partner, not just glancing up at them for a second, but really looking into their eyes? When is the last time you did that? Another facet of connection would be the spiritual and energetic plane. So do we feel aligned spiritually? Are we supportive of each other's spiritual beliefs? Are we maybe working towards a shared goal as a couple? Do we have something that we both want in life that we're working on together? Are we elevating each other's life experiences? Are we helping each other to have a good time on this planet while we're here? There is an intellectual aspect of connection. Do we value having stimulating conversations? Is that something that's important to you? If so, you probably want to feel intellectually connected. Like we can talk about interesting topics together and we can explore new ideas together, not feeling judged by each other as we share. And of course, there is emotional connection. How often are we sharing how we feel? Our internal experience of life. How often are we making that known to our partner? Do we know how to communicate our emotions with our partner? That is a huge part of emotional connection, being known for who you are as you experience your emotions and being able to do so in a way that feels safe. I believe that we can feel connected in some of those facets and disconnected in others. So we could feel emotionally connected, and yet there's something lacking in our sexual connection. I do think that's possible. However, I also believe that all of the facets are connected to each other. If you're filling up the physical touch bucket by spooning or cuddling, you are in turn filling up the emotional bucket in a way. Even though emotions aren't being shared, there still is a sense of feeling safe in touch, feeling loved, and all of these things. So these facets definitely are intertwined and do affect each other. But we can also be connected in one bucket and not in another. So that's my definition of connection. And like I said, yours could be different. We also experience in our body connection differently from human to human. I might feel connection as this opening in my heart. I might feel connection as this sparkly feeling or a warm feeling. So there's a lot of actual sensation, bodily sensation that can go along with feeling connected. My intention in defining connection is just to give you something to latch onto if you're not knowing where to start as far as connection goes. That might be what connection looks like for you. So let's talk about disconnection. In my experience, disconnection is a feeling of being separate from your partner, of being othered by your partner or by the relationship, something that happens. It's a feeling of separation. Sometimes I feel it too as like a wall. So there's something blocking our connection, and it could be anything. We'll get into that later. But it is this feeling of, I'm over here and you're over there. No matter how close to me, you might be sitting right next to me. I would still experience disconnection as you feel far away. For me, there are feelings of being unseen or my needs not being met by my partner or by myself. The way I see it, disconnection can happen because we actively create it or because we are allowing it to happen. We're not putting a stop to disconnection. We have just allowed it to go on and be unaddressed inside the relationship. And disconnection can lead us to acting out in certain interesting behaviors. So if you feel disconnected from your partner, this kind of animosity or fear really is what it is, can come up. So a fear that I am not important, I am not lovable, I am not good enough, fill in the blank for your specific baggage. And once that fear comes up, that's when we start to react in interesting ways. We might start to criticize our partner. Every little thing they do, nothing is good enough. We might start to shame ourselves or our partner. We might feel really irritable and we're not even sure why. We just feel annoyed by everything. We might feel paranoid. We could feel like maybe our partner's doing something behind our back. Am I being lied to? Am I not good enough? Again, there's the fear coming up. This paranoia that this person might leave me. And then all the way to just complete apathy. I have seen this in couples where at least one partner has just basically given up, and the disconnection has led them to kind of leave the relationship, not physically, but emotionally, mentally, spiritually, energetically. They are gone. Complete and total apathy. I would say that any relationship that has disconnection happening, it's being created by both parties. That doesn't mean it's a 50-50 split. It's half your fault and half his fault. It could be an 80-20, if you wanted to put numbers to it. But the point is that we both usually play a part in the creation of disconnection. We might be the partner that is simply allowing disconnection to happen. Meanwhile, the other partner is actively creating it, by attacking me or shaming me or ridiculing me, whatever the thing might be or the behavior. There's still two involved. It takes two to do any tango. And that's exactly what's happening here in this disconnection. And I would say that generally both partners are going to know that there's some kind of disconnection happening. We might not know at the front of our mind, but somewhere in our being, in the back of our brain, we know deep down that something ain't right. We might remember how it was when we first met. And there's that natural desire to connect. We're like, I want to be with them all the time. I want to text them all the time and know where they are all the time. And we're all excited. And so we might remember that and look, now 5 years later, 10 years later and go, something ain't right. And it's not just that we're past the honeymoon phase. It's something else. I don't feel warm and fuzzy around this person anymore. I feel very alone. I just did an episode on feeling lonely in your relationship. So generally, both parties are going to know, yeah, something ain't right here. A lot of the time when we are in disconnection, it's because one or both partners is retreating into themselves. They can't handle the vulnerability of sharing their internal experience. And so they are actually just retreating inward. And I have done this a lot. This is my go-to move, is just to wall off everyone around me and to go internal. When I say we're allowing disconnection, this is kind of what I mean. It's not that we are attacking our partner or we're, telling them how awful they are. It's just this subtle kind of going inward and not facing the disconnection that is occurring. Why would we create disconnection? You'd think that we want connection all the time. I want to feel connected all the time and safe and loved and special. And yet we create disconnection. Why would we do that? Well, we do that usually based on some of the conditioning from our childhood. If we felt that we had to deal with things on our own, we were not accepted in our expression of ourself. If we just felt generally disconnected from our parents and our siblings and our family, we will subconsciously want to recreate that in our relationship so that we can then resolve it. It sounds kind of silly, like we're playing games, and we are. We are playing games. That's the fun part about life. We're playing games with ourselves. So if we have that conditioning from our childhood that says that it's not okay to reach out for connection from someone or to be in connection with someone because that opens me up to being hurt or abandoned or ignored or shamed, then we would have immense fear around connection that we would then bring into our relationship. And it could then wreak havoc on our dynamic because we're playing out what we learned about love from childhood. Love, a big part of that is connection. So we learn about connection too in our childhood. And we learn whether we like connection, or a better way to phrase that is we learn whether we can trust connection. Because most humans do like connection. It's just the question of, can I trust it? Even if I give in and I connect and I do enjoy it, is it going to be ripped away from me? Am I going to be humiliated? Am I going to be targeted, ignored, etc.? Before we move on from disconnection, I just want to put out there that there's no shame in acknowledging the disconnection that is occurring in your relationship. We live in a crazy world where we are often very busy, we have a lot to do, and we are told that we should prioritize money and making everything look perfect and being the perfect family, being the perfect couple. And so it can be hard sometimes to keep our connection with each other when we're also trying to live up to the expectations of this world. It can take some time to even acknowledge and actually identify the disconnection is there. We may have settled into normalcy with the disconnection. Oh, this is disconnection. This is just how I've felt for the past 3 years with my partner. And everybody has their level of connection that they want. I personally want connection all the time. For the most part, I want my alone time too, because I'm connected with myself. I want alone time and I have boundaries. And connection, by the way, doesn't even mean that we're glued to our partner all the time and that we never leave them alone and everything we do it together. That's not what connection is. Connection is a feeling of, hey, even if you went on a trip for a couple months to Africa and I stayed back, because we're connected in these ways, I would be okay. Connection comes with us no matter how far we are distance-wise. Yes, physical touch is a big part of that, but it's not the end-all be-all. There's so much more to connection than just I'm physically close to you or I'm physically touching you. So how do we maintain our connection in the long term? How can we, amongst the busyness, amongst the potential chaos, how can we make sure that we are still connected to each other and create this bubble around ourselves, this bubble that protects us from the chaos when we need to retreat and find some strength and find some support? Before I share some of the techniques and tools that I have used in my life and with my clients, I encourage you to explore what is meaningful connection for you within the buckets. I'm going to go through these techniques and tools bucket by bucket, but I encourage you to go in and say, I really like when my partner does this every day. We say, I love you before we shut off the lights at night, and we make sure to give each other a kiss before he goes off to work. Whatever the case may be, this is a very personal thing. I can't tell you how to be connected to your partner. I can give you suggestions and some really nice ideas to experiment with. And you are invited to go your own way with connection. Figure out, what does it look like for you? For the purposes of this episode, I do have a few techniques and little things that you can do to stay connected with your partner. So for the physical and sexual bucket, something that I would say should be implemented into the daily lives of any couple is some sort of physical touch. That could look so many different ways. Are you giving your partner a hug every day? A long hug, a good hug? Are you holding hands? Are you making eye contact when they get home from work? Are you meeting them at the door to give them a kiss and look into their eyes? Very grounding process and kind of a welcome home vibe that I'm really a fan of when my partner comes home, welcoming him and inviting in touch before we even really start talking. Definitely before we start talking about anything serious or lengthy. Beyond that, we have sensual touch. So how does your partner touch you sensually? And I don't mean just in sex. I'm talking about you are standing in the kitchen and your partner comes up behind you to caress your back, including a massage. If you enjoy giving or receiving a massage, simple foot massage or calf massage at the end of the day would be a really nice practice to implement. You could keep it to 10 minutes, you could do up to 30, but that would be a little bit more of an involved way to make sure that you are incorporating physical touch into your daily life. You might be surprised how much you look forward to that simple act of touch every day. You'll end up being like, wow, I can't wait till my partner rubs my feet at the end of the day. I really love that. It really gets us physically connected. If we're talking about sex, I think a really important element beyond touch would be communication around sex. Are you talking about what you like and what you don't like? Are you saying what your boundaries are? Are you saying that you're uncomfortable in this position? There's a huge element of communication and making sure that we are both on the same page with whatever we are doing sexually. And of course, what makes you feel connected in sex? Is it eye contact? Is it kissing a certain way? Is it a certain position? What helps you to feel connected to your partner during sex? And what makes you feel disconnected? Disconnection in sex is very interesting because it can come up in different ways, but one big way for men and women, we will go into our head and we'll start thinking about, do I look good? Am I making too much noise? Do we have enough time to go grocery shopping today? Just totally go into our minds when we feel disconnected from our partner. We might also lose connection to the pleasure that we would normally feel during sex if we are disconnected from our partner. Could actually lose sexual sensation because of being disconnected. I feel like I could do an entire episode about connection during sex, and I probably will, but that's as far as I'll go for the purposes of today. So we'll move on. For your spiritual and energetic connection on a daily basis, what can you do there? Well, as silly as it sounds, you could sit down together and talk about, what is your goal as a couple? What are you both working towards? I would assume that you have some values that are shared. If not most of them, you at least have a handful. That's, again, that element of being a team. This is what a football team does together. They talk about what are they doing here? They're here to win. What are you here to do with your partner? Are you both really career driven and you want to get as far as you can in your specific career paths? Are you wanting to have a really great family that is close and can rely on each other? Do you both really value traveling the world and having new experiences and seeing different cultures? That is something I would sit down with my partner, and I have done this, where you are talking about what are we doing here? What are we creating here? We're going to create something whether we talk about it or not. So why don't we talk about it? And that way we can kind of hone our actions based on this conversation that we have. How can you be open-minded and supportive of the spirituality of your partner or a lack of spirituality? Most people don't share to a T the same spirituality or the same religion. I know that I don't really with my partner, but we are very open-minded with each other. The emotional connection bucket, I would say, are you sharing the way that you feel? Are you going through something right now and maybe you haven't opened up to your partner about what you're feeling? And the way that we can do that is to set up a time and a place where you're going to be talking to each other with no distractions, just you and your partner, maybe sitting on the couch and saying, this is how I feel. The other day, I went to my partner and I said, I am really going through it right now. I am scared. And I really have no idea what the fuck is going on as far as what's going to happen with my podcast, what's going to happen with my business. I have no idea. I'm very scared. That was kind of in passing that I did that. I would recommend sharing your feelings in a way that is more grounded, where you can really sit eye to eye and share. But you can do this however you want. The point being, are you saying how you feel? If you are stressed, if you are down, can you share that with your partner? In the book on Nonviolent Communication, the author, cannot remember his name right now, but it's a great book. He talks about how sharing our feelings up front in a disagreement can be really helpful. It's very sad and upsetting to me when I see that you haven't unloaded the dishwasher or whatever the case is. My point being that we're sharing our feelings at the onset of that kind of communication so that our partner understands this is how it feels to be in the situation that we're in. For my partner, a lot of the time we have no idea what our partner is experiencing. Of course, we'll never know 100% how it feels to be them. But for the most part, it is really helpful to share on some level my experience. And it helps me to feel seen, helps me to feel understood and connected. How much are you divulging to your partner? Could you be sharing more? In my last episode, I explained a practice called desires, fears, and loves, where you share one thing you desire, one thing you're afraid of, and one thing you love about your partner. And then you take turns doing that. That's just one way that you can open up emotionally and reach out for connection with your partner. So those are just some simple ways to create more connection. Like I said, please do go in and take a look at the things that you like. What kinds of small ways can you bring in more connection into your relationship that you could potentially do every single day? Now we are going to talk too about some practices that could help you to deepen your connection even farther. We're talking about deepening, not necessarily maintaining. Maintenance is very important. And if you desire depth, then here are some practices that you can do to create that, to dig even deeper. In any of these practices that I'm going to share, just know that there can be discomfort that comes up. We are not really used to, for the most part, opening up in the ways that we will in these practices, even with our partner who we love so much and who knows us better than most people. There still can be discomfort in doing these practices. And just like before, there are so many different ways to deepen connection. And so I will give you a list of some things that have worked for me, and then you can do your own research and explore for yourself based on what piques your curiosity. A couple techniques that I have personally used in my relationship to deepen our connection is inner child work. You can do it with your partner. It's basically bringing forward your inner child and doing a dialogue where you are showing your partner where some of your repetitive behaviors and patterns may have come from. For example, if I'm sitting with my partner, I would bring forward my inner 6-year-old, and she is where I can trace back my pattern of feeling like I am not cared for and therefore retreating into my bedroom and avoiding conflict at any point in time. That's the process, is we're bringing forward an inner child piece that could explain the root or the origin of a certain behavior. So it goes without saying that it can be quite vulnerable to do that in front of your partner, but it gives your partner a window into your inner world and to see why things might be going on. It's not that it gives them an excuse to continue their behavior, but it's an element of compassion that we can bring in when I can see this is why my partner explodes when we're late to dinner or whatever it is. You can do breath work together as a couple. I just did this a couple weeks ago with my partner, and it was really cool. Not only did it deepen connection, there was actually a moment during the breath work experience where I started to feel pain in my back in the same area that my partner had been feeling pain before we started the process. That was very interesting. And there's so many different ways that you can do breath work as a couple. I would recommend being guided through it by someone like me or someone who is trained in breathwork. You can try eye gazing. Eye gazing is really fun because it is so fucking uncomfortable when you first start to do it. I have done it several handfuls of times and it is still sometimes uncomfortable. Usually the first time that I guide a couple through that, it's just them laughing the entire time. It's very revealing and really shows us how avoidant we can be of meeting the gaze of our partner. It's so simple. You're literally looking into each other's eyes. That's it. You might set a timer for a minute, 5 minutes. I'm sure people have done it longer. That is something I would recommend trying out. You don't even need a guide for that. You can just set a timer and tell your partner, we're going to look into each other's eyes now. When I've done this, I have seen parts of my partner that I did not know were there. I saw his face like shift in a really cool way. I saw his eyes take on a different color even. So some really cool trippy stuff can happen when you do this. The eyes are a very dynamic part of the body. There's a lot more depth to them than we might think. So that's a practice that I highly recommend trying with your partner. Okay, so we talked about communication in sex, and I think that is a great tool. While you're having sex or even before, can you say, I want to try this, or this isn't working for me, or ow, that kind of hurts. A lot of women are not wanting to say, I'm uncomfortable right now. That doesn't feel quite right. We just want to make sure everything is fine and that we're pleasing our partner. But can you communicate that? It's a big deal. Now, even further than that, can we maybe have a sit down talk where we're getting really honest about something that we want to explore together, or that I want to explore and I'm not sure if you want to, and I'm curious. Can we get really honest about something that isn't working for us? What do you want more of? What do you want to play with and explore in order to deepen your connection? You could even do things like breath work before or during sex. You can do eye gazing before sex in order to create that connection before you go into it. In fact, I highly recommend some form of sensual touch, massage, caressing, kissing, and also some form of either breathing or eye gazing together before you have sex, because it brings us into our body and it gets us even more ready to then have sex. I read somewhere in one of my, sex textbooks, which part of a woman should you touch before having sex? Well, only the parts that you want to feel pleasurable and alive. So basically the whole body you could touch. For a woman, I do believe that is very important for most women. Of course, not all women. Most women appreciate being touched all over the body before we start making our way down to the genitals. Do you need to have a come to Jesus conversation with your partner about the way you are feeling? That is one way to go deeper in your relationship. Could even be that things are mostly good, but this one thing is just bothering the crap out of me. So can you have that come to Jesus talk? That's what I like to call it. It's like putting all the cards out on the table so that we can actually address these things and work on our connection. If you're wanting to do that and you've noticed that when you have opened up emotionally to your partner in the past and it usually leads to an argument, I would say consider hiring a coach or a therapist to facilitate the conversation and make sure that it goes as smoothly as possible. Funny enough, one of the biggest ways that my partner and I have created a deeper connection with each other has been making repair after a particularly rough argument, making repair in a way that actually deepens your connection. After you have the argument, the rupture, the disagreement, and both parties are upset, stomping around. I'm going to my room. I don't even want to look at you, talk to you. And so we sometimes will have that period where we're just like, yeah, fuck you, and total disconnection. And then by the time it comes to, okay, I'm ready to start speaking. I'm ready to reconnect, or at least to consider it. That's when we can bring in tools to make repair in a really great way. And that takes care and it takes owning our own shit. So what part of the argument can I take responsibility for? Certainly there's usually at least 10% of the argument that I can take responsibility for. And then some level of compassion that we bring in when we're addressing the rupture that occurred, the argument that got out of control. If we can make repair and make sure that each partner feels understood and feels seen, feels listened to, that is a great indicator for not only the strength of our relationship, but us being able to go deeper and deeper. Doesn't mean that you have to argue if you want to go deeper, but arguments happen. If we're communicating with each other and if we are connected, there are going to be times where we miscommunicate with each other and we do feel disconnected, and shit can happen because of that. Relationships are not a sterile, perfect environment. Messiness can happen. So, are we able to make repair in a way that feels good for both parties and allows us to become even closer, even more connected to each other? Okay, the biggest way to create more connection in your relationship is to create more connection with yourself. Anything that you are wanting from the external world, whether it's your partner, your friends, your family, whatever it may be, you can go in and look inside of yourself for that. So if you want more connection from your partner, why don't you first go and take inventory of your internal connection? Are you connected to yourself? And what does that mean? Do you feel like you can listen to your own desires? Do you know what you want? Do you know what you like? Do you know how your internal voice sounds? We have this voice that tells us the truth. It tells us what we want to be doing at any given moment, whether we do it or not. If I'm reaching for that fifth glass of wine and that voice inside of me goes, yeah, that's probably not a good idea. That's the voice I'm talking about. That voice can come up around bad behavior, bad habits. It can come up around good behavior and encourage us. And so are you listening? Do you have the finger on the pulse of your desires? And are you able to set boundaries for yourself? If we can go in and create more connection with ourselves, listen to ourselves more, understand ourselves more, have more compassion, that sets us up to be able to express ourselves, to reach out for connection in our relationship. So by doing the inside work, it strengthens our ability to do the outside work. You may want to explore modalities that can help us create more connection to ourselves. That could be dancing, it could be meditation, it could be hiking. Certainly working out helps us to connect with the physical body. Using those modalities, are you able to sense when your body is telling you something? Not just the voice in your head, but the actual physical body has ways of communicating with us. We might feel a lurch in our stomach. We might feel tingly in our chest. We might feel like a weight is coming off of our shoulders. In what ways does your body speak to you? And can you create more connection that way to yourself? All of the buckets that I mentioned before, the physical, the sexual, the intellectual, the emotional, and the spiritual and energetic, these are all buckets that we can apply to connection with ourself too, not just with our partner, but ourselves, our body. When you use these modalities, I would alongside that recommend that you explore your own blockages to connection. What is keeping you from connecting with your partner more? What fears do you have around connection? What might happen if you do feel connected in that way? So let's say if you feel disconnected sexually, what could happen if you attempted to become more connected sexually? Are you afraid you might be rejected? Are you afraid you might be seen as a slut or a whore? Are you afraid that you would be exposed? What is your particular fear around connection? And what messages did you receive around connection too as a child? Were you shown that connection wasn't safe? Were you shown that you could reach out for connection and that was encouraged? If that was the case for you, I applaud you. That's really great. It's not always the case. A lot of children are not shown what connection looks like in a healthy way. So it makes sense that a lot of us have to spend time rewiring and reprogramming our beliefs around connection so that we can then start living into that in our relationship. Our relationship is just a reflection of our own beliefs. Our whole life is a reflection of our beliefs, but your relationship is included in that. What we believe about connection will be reflected in our connection or disconnection from our partner. That's why we have to go in and take inventory of our beliefs. And take inventory with a magnifying glass, not just going, oh, that's interesting. Okay, anyway, really sitting with the beliefs and the emotions that we might carry, a lot of grief, a lot of sadness, fear, and maybe anger too, that we didn't get the connection we were looking for as a child. When you start to work on building connection with yourself, take note of how that shows up for you. Do you feel less anxious? Do you feel more grounded? Do you feel more excited and happy? Do you feel more at peace? What do you notice about when you do feel connected? How does your body feel? How does it feel when you get that message from your body or from that voice in your head and you listen to it? And how does it feel when you don't listen to it? That's okay too. Don't always have to listen to the messages that we get. A lot of the time we don't. And so what does it feel like when you don't listen, when you set a boundary and then you don't follow through on it or you let somebody step over it? That's a disconnection to self too. So how does that feel? You can experiment and play with it and try not to put too much pressure on yourself as you do so, as you come back into connection with yourself and your partner. Connection is a vulnerable thing. It opens us up to misunderstanding and to emotions bubbling up. It can be tricky navigating, but it's very, very much worth it, in my opinion, to know that you are connected to your partner in that way and that you can rely on your connection to get you through and feel like you are a team. That is the episode for today. That's all I have on connection. I may come back and do some episodes that are specific to those buckets that I spoke on. I think there's a lot to say about physical touch specifically, and also emotional connection is a big one for me. So I definitely am considering circling back on this topic. But for now, that's all I got for you. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate you being here, whether you're watching on YouTube or you're listening to the audio on Spotify or Apple. If you would like, you can find me on Instagram. I am at Coached by Kelby. I'm also on TikTok under the same username, and you can also email me with any questions that you would like for me to answer anonymously on the show. My email is coachedbykelby@gmail.com. I look forward to connecting with you guys there, and thank you again for listening. I will see you next Friday.